What's going on, YouTube? JT's Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Cobra Kai reviews. That's right, it's been a minute since I've talked about Cobra Kai here on the channel, and seeing how this is the final season, I figured I'd go ahead and make a video on it. So I didn't split this into the 3 parts individually because I wanted to kind of wait for the season to be done, because like I said, I've done videos on season 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I've been a mega Cobra Kai fan from the get-go. I've been a big Karate Kid fan since I was a kid, so seeing it all culminate together in this sequel legacy series, it was all like tremendous. So I'm very sad that it's over, but I'm happy for the journey that it took to kind of get to the ending of this thing. Never did I expect a YouTube Red sequel series to the Karate Kid, which then became a Netflix series, to be like this good. This is made by people who clearly love and care so much about the Karate Kid franchise as a whole. I mean, they brought back like pretty much everyone. Well, aside from Hilary Swank and all that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I guess they tried to, but it didn't quite work out. But the way it all culminates together, the different characters, the way like people switched allegiances and the different dojos and all things, the crazy fight scenes, the hilarious stuff, the over-the-top villains. I mean, this show's got pretty much everything. It's basically one giant karate soap opera. It feels kind of like a live-action anime in a lot of ways. But yeah, so like season 6 ended last week. I gave it a watch. I kind of rewatched a bit of it too as well. I actually rewatched like the whole thing kind of leading up to the finale with season 6 because I wanted a bit of a refresher because I hadn't watched some of the later seasons again on repeat. Now I'm more familiar with some of the older seasons because I've seen them like several times upon rewatching, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give this thing one last kind of like big watch ahead of it before we kind of get to the finale. But yeah, so Cobra Kai season 6. So it was released in 3 separate parts. And if you want to hear my thoughts on the other seasons, I'll leave them in the link in the description below. I've actually like met a few of the actors from Cobra Kai too. Like the first Comic-Con I ever went to, I ended up meeting like William Zabka, who was like one of the nicest celebrities I've ever met. I met Macho and Martin Kove very quickly, but it was just kind of for the photo ops they did. But like I went to like Zabka's like table, like there was nobody really there at the time. Again, this is pre Cobra Kai, but I ended up talking to the guy for a good like 10 minutes. Like he's really cool and all that stuff too. So yep. So yeah, big Karate Kid fan, big Cobra Kai fan. And I was really looking forward to seeing what they would do with season 6. Now, like season 5, I thought was really good. I mean, I think all 6 seasons are really good overall. Some seasons are stronger than others. I still think like season 2 is, one of the weaker seasons, but it does have a really entertaining finale. And there's still some really solid stuff in there as well. But sometimes it kind of leans a little too heavily on like the teen drama a little bit, and some of it can kind of bring it down just a smidge. And season 6, I thought the first batch of season 6, like the first 5 episodes, was probably the weakest the show has been. But then once it got to the Sekai Taikai tournament, it really kind of picked up the pace and got really awesome again, and it had that crazy kind of cliffhanger ending. And then in these last 5 episodes, I thought they closed off the storyline pretty well for generally like most people, for pretty much most of the characters. Now there's so many characters on the show, like they really kind of like just expanded the universe since kind of like the first season. Not everybody's going to get as meaningful of closure. I mean, the main characters in this thing were always going to be Johnny and Daniel, and it was at the core of Cobra Kai. It's always been about kind of those two and that sort of relationship and that too, as well as like Kreese, and then you have Silver in there. Zabka in this season especially gets to shine. Like he has some funny stuff, but he also really, there's one scene in particular that's my favorite scene one of the 2 favorite scenes this season, and that's the hallway scene he shares with Martin Kove's John Kreese. And you see him kind of turn back into like that teenage self again in one instance where he talks to Kreese and confronts him about how he threw him away like trash and all that. Like I was getting choked up watching that. I'm like, man, that scene actually hit really hard. I think that's probably the best acting from Zabka in terms of like the emotional stuff. I didn't know he really had that in him because we never got to see it. Because yeah, there were some scenes where he kind of gets a little sad here and there, but nothing like a breakdown like we see in the scene between him and Kove. And it really, really works because there's so much history between those two. And we've seen kind of how Kreese has been throughout this season. I mean, he had this really weird stuff at the beginning of season 6 where he's going on like some weird vision stuff. And then he like wants to kill Silver. And then it kind of turns into him like after of the death of Quan and the Sekai Taikai, which, by the way, full spoilers for this video, because it was released in 3 parts. So if you want to like avoid some of that stuff and see how it ends, I recommend watching the season, or if you don't care, just keep watching. Like I said, a lot of good stuff in that regard. So first couple batch of episodes this season was obviously the fallout of season 5, which, you know, season 5, Thomas Ian Griffith coming back as Terry Silver just stole the season. Like, he to me was the highlight of it, and also seeing more of Chosen. I love what they've done with Chosen in the series, and, you know, they had the stuff with him, Mike Barnes and all that too. Like, all Daniel's like former high school like kind of karate rivals in the same scene together was just wild and crazy to think about. And then, of course, like I said, season 6 happens. The first 5 episodes or so, it's them selecting members for the Sekai Taikai. Some of the fight scenes and drama in that felt a little bit forced at times. Then we had this sort of secret stuff going on with Miyagi's past. And I feel like I think that's originally where they wanted to bring in Hilary Swank, but they couldn't find a way. But then they found a way to kind of wrap it up. And some of the fights in that kind of felt a little bit forced. Like, there's the one scene where they're trying to get Kenny back on their side. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I felt like it was kind of time to start to wrap things up a little bit for the storyline, but now by the end of the season, I'm like, dang it, I'm kind of sad it's over. I almost want to see more, but I think it's good that they kind of ended it on a high note. So the first batch of episodes had some kind of gripes with that too. Some of the conflict felt a little bit forced. There were some funny stuff in there, but, you know, some of it was just like, oh, we're gonna get Daniel and Johnny kind of fighting again, because there's a scene where, you know, one thing about the show is, like, it really showcases like how much Daniel likes to glaze Miyagi, and it gets to the point where he even punches Johnny at one point, and Johnny's like, we're done, man. But then they kind of like reconcile like through the second half of season 2, and, you know, there's some funny stuff in there as well. Then you have other characters too, like the different dojos, like where the Sekai Taikai, and the Sekai Taikai stuff was actually a lot of fun. We have Lewis Tan's like rival to like Johnny, and then they found a way to bring Silver back, and I was wondering, like, where is Silver in this season? Like, I know he got arrested in season 5, but he's Terry Silver. Like, he buys his way out of like every situation. When's he gonna pop up? And when he does show up, surprisingly enough, in that scene in season 6 part 2, I definitely cheered, like, when I was watching on my couch for like the first, like, yeah, Silver's back. And then it ends with the whole death of Quan, which was, you know, pretty crazy, where that they actually finally like started having some death in this thing, because, you know, the original Karate Kid didn't quite, well, I mean, characters did die. I mean, like Miyagi's, was it his father or whatever, passed away, and he went to go see him in Karate Kid Part 2, but here, like, you know, a character's actually like killed on screen. It's a kid, nevertheless, and it leaves everyone kind of a little bit shaken. Now, we do kind of skip a little bit ahead with the Fallout in that to kind of start out like season 6 part 3, and then we have Terry Silver, who, as I was kind of thinking like earlier on in the show, like he's dying. Like, he doesn't have much else left to live, and all he really has left is this whole karate stuff. And, you know, when you really break it down, it is pretty like silly and ridiculous how this whole warring karate stuff, like, it just started out like as these two like former high school rivals kind of confronting each other once again, and it just escalated this far, bringing back Terry Silver, who was just kind of off living his life and definitely wanted peace, but then Kreese kind of utilized his like PTSD from Vietnam and really kind of brought the old Terry Silver back. And like watching Thomas Ian Griffith, like, why is this guy not more things? He is so freaking good. Like, he needs to be a Bond villain or something. I want to see this guy act again in more stuff, because like Karate Kid 3, not the best movie, but Thomas Ian Griffith as Terry Silver in that film is phenomenal. Like, he gives such a like entertaining performance, and is the main reason to watch that movie. I mean, anyone who watches Karate Kid 3 is like, okay, Terry Silver, like, he's generally like by far the best part of that movie. And he comes back here, and he's got some good stuff in here. His final scene with Kreese, though, which is the second to last episode. Again, this is after the stuff that happens in the tournament. Man, I still got to get to talking about the final stuff in the tournament, too. Man, there's so many different moving pieces and so many characters to talk about within this thing. So, yeah, like, where is that? Like, yeah, so we have, like, Silver in that, and then we have, like, the final confrontation between him and Kreese, which definitely took a turn that I did not expect. I mean, I was watching these episodes, like, super late at night. I was just watching them on my phone at that point, because, like, it was, like, Friday night, like, 2 a.m., because I didn't have time to watch it on Thursday, because I was working on that Valentine's Day special for everyone on the channel. And then we get to the scene where Terry Silver and Kreese are fighting, and then the boat like fucking explodes. I'm like, what? Like, this is insane. Like, I just did not expect them to just kaboom like that. I guess like the creators kind of filmed some extra stuff just in case they wanted to keep them alive, but after watching the scene, I'm like, those two are dead. Like, you don't need to bring them back at this point. But it was kind of a crazy way to kind of go out, and Kreese had a slight bit of redemption for him within that scene, and even in the tournament, like because like his students don't really want to come back and, you know, fight for him. So then he has like Tori there, and then Miguel kind of jumps to his team, and Johnny takes over Cobra Kai because Robbie and Axel, the character they introduced as part of, you know, Louis Tan's and Terry Silver's like new dojo that he bought into the thing. So yeah, it just gets so crazy with this stuff. So boy, man, just so many different characters. And they have other characters like Hawk and Dimitri. Dimitri's whole thing about MIT and the tension there. Dimitri reminds me so much of a kid I went to high school with, like just to a T in terms of his personality. And then Hawk is a character, like, you know, him and Dimitri kind of like the later half of the season, they kind of wrap up their stuff. It's not like the strongest stuff I've seen, because Hawk had a lot of cool stuff. Like, he was one of the more interesting characters. He would always kind of flip sides, and then he'd get corrupted, and then he'd kind of flip his side again. I don't know, like, in terms of, like, the teen characters, I feel like I really kind of liked Robbie a bit, like, more so, like, as the series progressed, because I felt like his progression from, like, angsty kid into, like, hey, golly gee willikers, I'm on Miyagi-Do, felt a little bit quick, but then he kind of went a little bit more towards the darker side, but then he kind of saw, like, what Cobra Kai had done, and he really kind of made a lot of this decisions more so on his own. He didn't spend so much like he had a lot of different gray areas, and then over the course of it, like, he really kind of evolved into a strong leader. And I am kind of bummed that he never really got like any big victories, but I understand kind of why they went with that direction with his character, where it just shows you, despite becoming in second place, he's not going to wind up like his father. Like, he had a good stuff with Tori at the end of it, but like having his leg broken in kind of a cheap way and not being allowed to win the tournament in that fashion, that was kind of a bummer with Robbie. It's like he's been through so much. Like, Hawk won a tournament, Miguel's won two, basically. He won the Sekai Taikai. But Robbie never really got that big win, and I'm just like, man, I kind of wanted to see him get at least one throughout it, because like I said, Hawk and all that got their stuff too, but like Robbie never quite got that big like major win in terms of like the overall Sekai Taikai like tournament stuff. So yeah, there's also some stuff I will say I didn't really like so much within season 6. The CGI Mr. Miyagi does not look good. The first time you see it, I was like, ooh, that looks pretty bad. The second time they brought him in, like, it looks a little bit better, but it still comes across as that uncanny valley sort of territory. Then they do other random stuff too, like they have this AI Axel that fights Robbie, because like Dimitri and Hawk are able to build something that even NASA couldn't perfect or whatever, to have him fight like an AI version of it. Like, that was just kind of weird and like bizarre the way that kind of turned out. I don't know how I felt about it. It was just kind of a strange VR sort of thing. Like, VR is just not that good. Like, what are we even doing with this stuff here? So we had that stuff going on. Like, that stuff didn't work for me. And also, like, after Kreese and Silver's deaths, it's never even really acknowledged, like, in the last episode. Like, why aren't, like, Johnny... I feel like there's, like, a deleted scene somewhere where they have to acknowledge what happened. Because, like, Johnny and Kreese kind of had this sort of reconciliation moment when Johnny is given back control of Cobra Kai. And that was a good moment with Kreese in that too. Like I said, the scene in the hallway is arguably the best scene in the whole like season. One of the best, if not the best, in the entire series, because like that scene actually got me like legit really choked up. We have this kid who's basically, his father had abandoned him. His surrogate father, somebody he looked up to, somebody he loved, had just abandoned him after all those years and left him alone and threw him away like trash. And the acting from Zabka and Cove especially are like really exceptional within that scene. And then just kind of seeing how it kind of wrapped itself up there, that was like I said, that hits like a real like emotional like beats in that scene. But I'm just kind of surprised in the last episode we don't really even acknowledge what happened to Silver and Kreese. Like, I would have liked one passing reference. I understand they probably filmed some stuff, but this is the end of your series. You don't know if you're necessarily going to get to do more stuff. You should have at least some sort of acknowledgement from them, like, hey, you know, these bad guys have been kind of tracking us, dealing with the last couple of seasons are just kind of dead. Also, like, Master Kim, like, he gets killed off by the one female sensei who's like Chosen's into, and that kind of gets like pushed aside a little bit too. It's like, I thought she was going to come back into the tournament. It's like, no, he's done. I'm going to take over this thing and do things my way. And then Chosen kind of goes off to hook up with her at some point. So there's some stuff going on with that where I'm just like, I could have used a little bit more of it. But again, there's so many characters within the show that not everyone's going to get like the greatest of endings. Sam, her stuff, like, Sam was never like one of my favorite characters, but like, you know, she was fine in the show. She kind of like has the message of like, I'm not going to fight in this thing. And it's then, you know, Tori kind of takes on Zara or whatever. Yeah, like, which was a kind of a cool moment where she just kicks her teeth out. Like, that was pretty sweet. The final fight stuff with like Axel and Miguel was pretty cool stuff. Miguel finally got his big Sekai Taikai tournament win. But the big surprise for me, like in terms of the final stuff that we get to, I guess we're now at the end of like things with the tournament. Also, I like seeing like the character growth really of like Johnny Lawrence, and I like Daniels in this season as well, becoming like rivals to friends is one of my favorite kind of like movie tropes and everything. Like if it really feels earned, and in this show it definitely felt earned. So Johnny obviously marrying Carmen and having the baby there, and they're playing Take My Breath Away. That was a nice bit. Like I really love how far we've seen Johnny's progression. I think he's had legit one of the best character arcs I've seen in any television show, from somebody who was just face down on the mat, who's just like every aspect of his life was crap, and he had bad relationships with his ex-wife, bad relationship with his son, and just kind of everyone else like around him with like, you know, his sort of like father under Kreese. Like everything about this guy's life was just kind of crap, and the way he's able to turn it around and become an inspiration to like these different kids, but like he really kind of had to earn like his sort of like happy ending he gets by the end of the series, becoming a father again, you know, to his son and to Miguel, and also having his baby Laura and all that too. And I like the Take My Breath Away bits like right before the baby is born. So there's a lot of really cool stuff like in there too. Like it just makes you kind of smile with all the things going on. And of course we get to the big finale. So Cobra Kai and the other dojo basically end up in a tie, and to decide the winner of the Sekai Taikai tournament, it has to be the two senseis battling each other out. And so this is the way to get Johnny kind of like his sort of closure from like what happened in the show. Like after that kick, like his whole life went into a downward spiral. Like it's super ridiculous when you think about it. Like losing a single karate tournament by 1 point is what caused this guy's life to really kind of go in a downward spiral, because, you know, like his sensei / father figure Kreese pretty much abandoned him, and Daniel got all this glory and all that, and Johnny kind of went off and just never fully recovered because he didn't have that support he kind of needed at the time. So Johnny's given a second chance in the All Valley Sekai Taikai World Tournament to kind of really kind of like win this thing for good. And then we get some stuff I've been waiting for like this whole series. So Daniel agrees to basically be his sensei, which is a nice thing too. Like Daniel kind of molds into that Miyagi role where, you know, Miyagi trained Daniel, and now he's doing the same thing with Johnny. And, you know, Johnny's, you know, kind of dealing with some stuff as well. Like he doesn't want to be remembered as kind of a loser. Like this is kind of his last big kind of shot. Like he's still going to have his family there for support, but if he comes up short, it's just not going to feel right. And in a lot of different shows, like it's the cliche thing, like the hero kind of finally triumphs, but Johnny's been shit on for like so many years at this point. He's had a lot of L's. It's time for the guy to get a W. Like we want to see Johnny win. Like I wanted to see this guy really kind of get his big win after every little hardship he's been through. And it's a good arc about like, you know, having second chances and really kind of turning one's life around for the better. He's still going to be a badass. He's still going to have his funny stuff because, well, he's Johnny, and he has some great comedic moments too. But then, like I said, we finally get the final bit where it's him and Daniel together. Daniel trains him, and they finally played You're the Best Around, which I've been waiting for 6 whole seasons. And it was well worth the wait too, because I was like, oh man, when are they going to use this thing? Because that song is awesome. It's been stuck in my head all week since they played it in the episode. And it's so synonymous with Karate Kid that you have to have some way to integrate that song. It's a legit, amazing, fantastic song. And having it be used for the final episode, you have Johnny being trained by Daniel. They kind of do a little bit of a mix of the Rocky 3 and Rocky 2 stuff, and playing that awesome song. Like I definitely cheered like when I was watching the last episode there when that finally happened. And then we get into the tournament. The final tournament was him and Louis Tan's character. I'm drawing a blank on his name, by the way, where they finally get their big fight scene. And then Johnny is there, and he's kind of getting his ass kicked. But then Daniel is like, I can't be this Miyagi. I have to be this Cobra Kai like sensei. And so he kind of like, no mercy, all this thing. Fear does not exist in this dojo. Really instills the hope in him. Johnny is finally able to win and kind of get his win back after like however 30 plus years ago, like in terms of like Cobra Kai and all that stuff, and losing the tournament. And Daniel and everyone's there cheering triumphant. We get a nice full circle moment, because in the original Karate Kid, Johnny hands Daniel the trophy. He's like, you're all right, LaRusso. And then now Danny is saying to Johnny, you're all right, Lawrence. And it's a really big, nice, cheerful moment for the characters, and just seeing them together like that, it feels good. Like you really feel this friendship was earned. And then we get like Sweet Child of Mine playing, which is also an awesome song. And we see kind of the characters going off doing their things. Robbie and Tori. Like Tori actually was one of the more interesting characters in the show, because because she's constantly battling back and forth between like her darker sides and all that. Like she's had kind of a shit hand thrown at her in life. Doesn't justify all her actions. So she's done some pretty bad stuff. But ultimately, her and Robbie do have kind of a nice one because they're going to be like together. They're going to be like sponsored like karate people, and it's good for them. Miguel, of course, won the big Sekai Taikai tournament, so it was good to see him get his big win after everything. And him and Sam are going to go off to kind of hang out in Okinawa. Anthony LaRusso, well, I don't really care much about Anthony. He's always kind of like been a little shit in the show. Like he never quite won me over in the series like some of the other characters did, because like Anthony was so awful like for several seasons, and I just like maybe he needed more focus to kind of win me over. But like Anthony, like even like though he did some better things towards the end, he still never quite won me over on the show. He was always like, this is the shit. And Kenny was the character who like was just treated like the absolute worst, but then ends up becoming like the bully himself. And you know, Kenny's storyline, like I feel like too, because him and Anthony and you know characters like what was her name, the Eagle Fang girl, shoot, I'm drawing a blank. There's so many characters in the show, it's tough to kind of keep up with them all. Like Devin Lee, that was it. So like they're going to be kind of like the next generation kind of going through, because like by the end of the show, Johnny is now like training kids at Cobra Kai. Daniel's also doing Miyagi-Do stuff. And we also have Stingray at like one of the locations as well. Terry Silver's gone, Kreese is out of their lives. At least that's what we assume because of the explosion, but I'm sure they filmed it in case they just want to bring him back just in case. But like for now, it's like just let him rest at this point. Like that was a good closure moment, and you know Kreese being like no, and Terry's like Terry's like no, and then Kreese is like mercy and just blows up the boat. It's a little ridiculous, but I mean Terry Silver was dying at this point unless he found some miraculous cure. It's you know best to kind of wrap up a storyline there, and well, what a way to go out like all those years later. So yeah, that's what's that. Johnny's off doing his thing. Daniel's off doing his thing. There's one kind of final gag bit where they're like in a restaurant together eating. I think the creators were in that scene too, making a cameo, talking about a potential like Back to the Future like storyline, TV series or something like that, which, you know, is just a funny little gag. And then Daniel's going to try and catch the fly with the chopsticks. Johnny smacks with his hand, and Daniel just kind of looks at him like, ugh. And then that's Cobra Kai and how it wraps itself up. So yeah, a few things, a little hiccups in season 6, but I think the show with the main characters, and it's always Cobra Kai at its core is a story about Johnny Lawrence and his redemption. Yeah, you had Daniel in there as well. Like he was kind of the other like kind of main character throughout the series, but I feel like it's really just been Johnny's story more so from the get-go. Daniel gets a lot of focus in different seasons as well, and you know his Glazing Miyagi goes a little bit far, but he has to kind of accept that you know some of the kids are going to learn other things too, and you know his storyline wraps itself up nice. And plus Ralph Macchio is coming back for Karate Kid Legends, and I'm looking forward to seeing that movie more so like after the season, because it's set a few years afterwards. And, you know, Ralph Macchio still doesn't age somehow, which is insane, by the way. So I'm looking forward to what they do with Karate Kid Legends. But Cobra Kai, like, it doesn't have anything that directly leads into that movie necessarily. It just kind of stands more so, like, on its own and was more focused about wrapping up Cobra Kai as opposed to setting anything else up in the near future. I keep hearing rumors that the creator is going to be coming back to maybe do some sort of spin-off show, because there is still some story potential within this series. I still want to see like Hilary Swank in that, like kind of brought back into the mix. I was waiting several seasons for that, and I think they tried to bring it in but didn't quite make it work. But you know, like that's off doing its own thing. I'm sure they'll find some way to kind of cross them over at some points. A few hiccups, like I said, here and there. The CGI AI deepfake Miyagi thing, like that always just looked off and kind of weird to me. It just never quite worked. And you know, I think we could have used a little bit more closure with Kreese and Silver, at least from the other characters' reactions, especially seeing what Silver and everyone else put them through for several seasons at this point. But other than that, I think Cobra Kai ended its series on a high note. I mean, these are 6 really good seasons of television. It's one of, if not the best legacy sequels ever made, right up there with like a Top Gun Maverick, or another film that I think is underrated is a Dr. Sleep. But Cobra Kai is made by people who have love and tremendous passion for the world of Karate Kid, and you can see that with every episode. You can see that in the way they brought back countless characters. Sure, some characters may not get like as much closure in like the best way as some others, but when you have like 50 characters in the show, it's impossible to give everyone the greatest of closures. But the characters that mattered the most, like the core 2, Johnny and Daniel, have a good close in like kind of ending with their storylines. Johnny especially, like I think Johnny Lawrence really kind of became one of my favorite characters like in like movie/TV history. Not so much movies, but like more so television. Like Johnny Lawrence just became one of my favorite characters. Like he's legit really funny. and he's a very flawed character, but you really see this man really grow over the course of these past 6 seasons into a real honorable, like, kind of man. He's still gonna be like, have his like asshole Johnny Lawrence persona. He's still gonna be kind of dumb and clueless about certain things because he's like somebody who's like stuck in like an 80s time capsule, and that leads to a lot of great like comedic moments too. Like there's one scene this season where he kind of is trying to figure out like proposal stuff, and just the way he kind of puts together, like it just generally is like really funny with the stuff that they're able to kind of write with him. But it is like an inspiring kind of hopeful storyline, and it feels good by the end of it. Like I felt like sad, but also like relieved that they actually stuck the landing, because a lot of TV shows don't know how to stick the landing, but I think Cobra Kai definitely did. And I'm sad it's over, but I'm glad they didn't overstay their welcome, because like I said, when season 6 part 1 was happening, I'm like, yeah, I feel like it's time to kind of wrap this thing up. But they really kind of delivered within the last bunch of like episodes as the series kind of wrapped itself up. So yeah, I'm thankful I watched it. I think it's some really good stuff, and I'm sad it's over with, but I'm happy I was there for the journey. So yep, those are my final thoughts on Cobra Kai Season 6. I may have to do some videos on the other Karate Kid movies leading up to Karate Kid Legends. I don't exactly know. I have this tendency to want to jump into so many things at once, but I am glad that I got the chance to watch like the ending to Cobra Kai, and I think they ended it on the right notes. So, yep. What did you all think of Cobra Kai Season 6? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Post your comments down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to your channel for more content. Share this with your friends, all that other fun stuff. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. I don't know what I got coming up next. I think tomorrow I'm going to be seeing the movie The Monkeys, so look forward to an after the movie on that. But yeah, I'm just thankful that Cobra Kai ended well. So yeah, kind of a sad moment, but also like a bitter, like in a good sort of way. Like I said, this is some good stuff overall. So, all right, well, that's all I have to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.